Imagine this. You stop texting him. You stop calling. You stop chasing. Suddenly, his entire behavior shifts. Sounds crazy, right? But it's true. Your silence can speak louder than any words you've ever said. Because when you stop reaching out to a man, one of four things will happen. And how he responds will tell you more about him than months of conversations ever could. Subscribe to our channel to uncover more psychological secrets that help you understand relationships and yourself better. Here's the thing, pay attention, because this is where many get it wrong. Some believe if they stop contacting him, he'll forget them. Others think silence is a manipulative tactic. Both are off the mark. What really happens is this: your absence creates a mirror. He's forced to confront what you mean to him without the comfort of your constant presence. And that's when the real test begins. Have you ever paused to consider what goes on in a man's mind when you suddenly go quiet? Most women assume that they pull back, he'll just move on, but the reality is far more complex. Silence is one of the most powerful psychological tools in relationships. It doesn't just vanish into thin air, it shifts the dynamic, disrupts patterns, and stirs emotions he can't easily control. Here's why. Men are wired to pursue, to conquer, to protect what they value. When you're always the one calling, texting, or keeping the connection alive, he relaxes, he knows you're there. But the moment you stop offering that steady stream of attention, his brain registers something's off. That uncertainty, that breaking rhythm, creates a pull. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding how male psychology actually works. Predictability breeds comfort, but comfort rarely fuels passion. When you stop being predictable, his mind starts to shift. Suddenly, he's asking questions he never considered before. Did I mess this up? Is she pulling away? Is someone else in the picture? That spiral of questions becomes a turning point. And here's where Carl Jung's wisdom hits hard. People cannot stand a meaningless life. When your presence becomes uncertain, he feels the void of meaning. You are a steady source of validation and connection. Now that certainty's gone, and it unsettles him. The fascinating part, not every man reacts to silence the same way. Some get anxious, some get defensive, and some focus on you in ways they never did before. It all depends on how he sees himself, how he values you, and the balance of control in the relationship. When you're always available, always checking in, always filling the gaps, he settles into a safe, predictable rhythm. In his mind, there's no need to try harder, but the second you stop reaching out, his brain switches to problem-solving mode. Suddenly, he's faced with an unexpected question. Why isn't she reaching out anymore? That question triggers what psychologists call the uncertainty principle. Humans are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand or control. For men, the drive to face a challenge and unravel a mystery is especially strong. When your attention disappears, it leaves a void his mind can't help but fill with thoughts of you. And here's what most miss. At first, he might seem calm, unbothered, like he doesn't care, but then, suddenly, he's watching your stories, liking your posts, or finding flimsy excuses to text. These contradictory reactions all stem from the same root: his instinct to respond to scarcity and attention. Think about it. When something's always available, its value feels steady, almost invisible. But when it becomes scarce, its value skyrockets. That's how the human mind works. Scarcity creates urgency. So, let's break it down. When you stop contacting a man, the first big reaction he often faces is confusion. Men are creatures of habit. If he's used to your steady presence, your calls, your check-ins, your affection, and it suddenly vanishes, his brain struggles to adjust. At first, he brushes it off. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she needs space. Maybe she texts. Soon, that initial calm comes from his ego, from the assumption you'll always come back. But when hours turn into days and the silence holds, That confidence starts to crack. This is when his inner storm begins. Your silence disrupts his sense of control. He might not admit it, but he's been leaning on the comfort of knowing you're there. Maybe he didn't think about you constantly before, but the certainty of your presence gave him security. Now that comfort's gone, and your absence becomes louder. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. His ego wants to stay calm, to believe it's no big deal, but the vulnerable part of him, the part he rarely shows, starts whispering doubts. Did I push her away? Is she done with me? Is she with someone else? Those whispers grow into a voice, and that voice becomes a storm. This storm doesn't hit right away, it builds gradually. The more he tries to shrug it off, the stronger it gets. Soon, he's checking his phone too, often rereading old chats, scrolling through your posts, or noticing small details about you he once overlooked. That's the psychological impact of scarcity. When something once guaranteed becomes uncertain, the mind can't stop fixating on it. For many men, this is the stage where they realize they might have taken you for granted. But here's the key: every man handles this stage differently. Some will reach out quickly, desperate to restore the lost security. Others will hold back, torn between pride and fear. And some will act indifferent, pretending they don't care, while secretly replaying everything in their mind. This is the critical insight. Your silence forces him to face emotions he's not used to confronting. Men are often taught to suppress vulnerability, to avoid showing doubt. But when you stop reaching out, he loses the comfort of avoidance. He can't escape the mirror your absence creates. And that's why silence is so powerful. It's not about ignoring him to hurt him. It's about creating space for the truth to surface. His reaction in this phase tells you whether he values you, fear us losing you, or never truly cared. So, the question is, how do you respond to his confusion? The answer lies in patience. Don't rush to break your silence. Don't fill the void he's feeling. Let him sit with that discomfort, because it's in that discomfort that clarity begins to form. And this is just the beginning. Confusion is the spark. From here, things get more intense. What starts as quiet doubt quickly spirals into anxious overthinking, and overthinking has the power to change everything. Once confusion sets in, something deeper stirs. The silence that once made him curious now starts gnawing at his thoughts. At first, he might tell himself, "It's fine. She's probably busy. She texts when she's free." But as hours pass, then days, with no word from you, the cracks in his confidence widen. This is where overthinking kicks in. And when a man starts overthinking, the spiral can become relentless. Men aren't always great at facing their emotions head-on. Instead of sitting with their feelings, they try to explain them. That means instead of admitting, "I miss her," or "I'm worried she's pulling away," his mind races with analysis. He replays your last conversation, overanalyzes the tone of your final text. He notices small details like the emoji you used or the timing of your reply. Things he never paid attention to before now feel like hidden messages. This is the danger of silence. When information disappears, the mind creates it, often filling the void with worst-case scenarios. He might start thinking, "Did I say something wrong? Was I too cold? Is she seeing someone else? Is she done for good?" These thoughts loop until they take on a life of their own. Suddenly, a man who once seemed confident is second-guessing himself in ways he didn't expect, and those doubts quietly eat at him until he's insecure. That insecurity shows up in subtle ways. He might check your profile more often. He might notice who's liking your photos, who's commenting on your posts, or who you've recently followed. Even the smallest changes in your online activity suddenly become major clues in his eyes. He's searching for answers because the silence you've created feels unbearable. And here's the paradox: the more he obsesses, the more he feels out of control. The more he tries to shrug you off, the more you dominate his thoughts. That loss of control is where the real power of silence lies. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's exactly what your silence does. It pulls his unconscious fears and insecurities to the surface, fears he might not even realize he had. He starts confronting truths about himself, his pride, his attachment, the doubts he usually buries. For some men, this stage is overwhelming. They might get defensive, pretend they don't care, convince themselves they're better off without you, but even in their silence, their mind is still on you. Pride might stop them from reaching out, but the inner storm doesn't fade. Other men will cave quickly. They'll send a casual text, "Hey, how's it going?" or "I haven't heard from you in a while." On the surface, it looks breezy, but underneath, it's a plea for reassurance. It's their way of testing the waters, hoping you'll respond and restore the comfort they're missing. Then there are the men who hover in the middle. They don't reach out directly, but they linger in your world, liking your posts, watching your stories, leaving subtle hints. These actions aren't random, they're breadcrumbs, signaling he's watching, that he wants you to notice him without admitting it outright. But let's zoom in on why this overthinking phase is so powerful. It's not just about your absence, it's about what your silence represents. When you were always available, he felt secure. Even if he wasn't giving his all, he knew you were there. But now, that safety net is gone. Suddenly, he feels vulnerable. Vulnerability can be terrifying for a man who's not used to it. And when a man feels vulnerable, he reacts in one of two ways. He either steps up or retreats further into pride. The tug of war between pride and vulnerability is the heart of this phase. Part of him wants to reach out, admit his feelings, restore the connection. The other part fears rejection, fears looking weak, fears giving you the upper hand. And so, he hesitates. That hesitation creates tension within him. The silence is loud. His thoughts are racing, but his pride ties his hands. He might tell himself stories to protect his ego. If she cared, she'd reach out. "I'm not going to cave first." But even as he says this, his actions betray him. He's still checking, still watching, still looking for signs of you. This is where the overthinking phase becomes powerful for you, because it forces him to reflect. He can't lean on your constant attention to soothe his ego anymore. Instead, he has to ask himself real questions. Do I care enough to fight for her? Am I willing to risk losing her completely? Or was I just comfortable because she was always there? Your silence forces him to confront truths he's been avoiding. Follow our channel for more insights on using silence to uncover truth in your relationships, and sometimes that truth surprises even him. Here's a fascinating thing about male psychology. Many men don't realize the depth of their feelings until they face the possibility of losing what they have. Only in absence, in silence, does the emotional weight come crashing down. So, what does this mean for you? It means your role is to hold steady. Don't break your silence to soothe his overthinking. Don't rush to rescue him from his doubts. Let him wrestle with them, because the more he wrestles, the clearer he becomes, not just about you, but about himself. Some men will come out of this phase stronger, more honest, more determined to step up. Others will stay stuck in pride, unable to move past their ego. Either way, his reaction reveals the truth. Remember this, overthinking isn't the end. It's the middle ground. It's the bridge between confusion and his next move. And what happens after the storm of overthinking is action. Whether that's reaching out, chasing, or retreating, his next step will be shaped entirely by the emotions your silence has triggered. And here's where things get even more interesting, because once the overthinking builds to high, once the insecurity grows to strong, he hits a breaking point. And that breaking point leads to the third reaction, sudden, sometimes surprising attention. After the confusion and anxious overthinking, something shifts. The silence that once made him curious, then doubtful, finally forces him to act. He reaches a point where sitting still is no longer an option. This is where his behavior changes. What once looked like indifference now turns into bursts of attention. He might not realize it, but your absence has lit a fire in him. At first, his efforts might be small, as simple texts like, "Hey, what's up?" A meme, an inside joke, a random song he knows you like. On the surface, it feels casual. But don't be fooled, these moves aren't random, they're emotional threads. They're his way of asking, "Are you still there? Do I still matter?" If you don't respond, those efforts often escalate. Suddenly, he's liking your old posts, watching your stories the second you post, or accidentally calling you. None of this is coincidental. His attention is shifting back to you because your silence has created scarcity, and scarcity makes things valuable. Think about it. When something's always available, we barely notice it. But the moment it's taken away, we start craving it. That's what's happening here. He's realizing your attention, once taken for granted, is no longer guaranteed. And that shift changes everything. The man who once seemed distant, distracted, or unbothered suddenly shows signs of pursuit. He might start complimenting you again, reminding you of old memories, or making plans to meet up. The energy he once held back now floods out because your silence has pushed him to act. But here's the catch, not all attention is created equal. Sometimes his sudden efforts come from genuine emotion. He realizes how much he values you and doesn't want to lose you. Other times, it's his ego. He doesn't want to lose the comfort of knowing you're there. But that doesn't mean he's ready to fully step up. And this is why your response matters more than his initial effort. If you rush to reply the second he tosses out a breadcrumb of attention, the power shifts right back to him. But if you stay calm, measured, and in control, you'll see his true motives revealed. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In this phase, that wisdom rings true. His unconscious fears of losing you are now driving conscious action. But the question is, are those actions coming from genuine care or just a fear of losing control? To understand his motives, look beyond the surface. If he's sending one-line texts with no depth, he might be fishing for reassurance, not connection. But if his words start showing vulnerability, asking how you're doing, checking on your life, apologizing, or wanting to meet in person, he's pushing past his ego towards something real. This is a deeper layer most miss. This phase isn't just about what he does, it's about how he feels while doing it. Your silence has stripped away his certainty. That uncertainty is uncomfortable, even painful. For many men, this is the first time they truly ask themselves what you mean to them, and the fear of losing you becomes the fuel driving his behavior. Picture this, he's scrolling through your posts late at night, remembering the sound of your laugh or replaying your last conversation in his head. He tells himself he's just checking, but deep down, he knows he's chasing the comforts your presence once gave him. And here's where another of Jung's insights strikes like lightning. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Your silence irritates him. It makes him insecure, but in that irritation, he's forced to face truths about himself. Why does her absence bother me so much? Why do I feel unsteady when she's not around? What does this say about my real feelings? In this discomfort, growth begins. Some men embrace it, realizing they need to step up, value you properly, admit their feelings. Others resist, trying to mask their emotions with pride or distraction. Either way, your silence has done its job. It's forced him to reflect. Now, let's look at the subtle ways a man reveals himself in this phase. Testing texts, short, casual messages like "Hey" or "What's up?" These aren't about connecting, they're about seeing if you'll bite. Nostalgic plays, he brings up old memories, inside jokes, or moments that once made you smile. This isn't random, it's his way of rebuilding closeness, without openly admitting vulnerability. Bursts of attention, suddenly, he's complimenting you, engaging with your posts, or showing interest he hasn't shown in weeks. Subtle jealousy. He might ask who you've been with, comment on your social media activity, or act uneasy if he thinks someone else is catching your attention. All these are signs your silence has shattered his comfort zone. But here's the pivot. This sudden attention isn't the final reaction. It's just the build-up to something far more powerful. Because no matter how much he hides behind casual texts or light gestures, there comes a moment when the weight of your silence forces him to face his deepest fear, losing you completely. And this is the phase where things truly shift. His texts stop being casual. His tone changes. His emotions break through the surface. He's no longer just chasing your attention. He's grappling with the possibility of regret. This is when silence reveals its greatest power. It takes a man from habit to doubt, to pursuit, and finally to raw vulnerability. And in that vulnerability, you'll see his truth clearer than ever. After the confusion, overthinking, and bursts of attention, he reaches the most powerful stage, emotional realization. This is the point where silence stops being a mystery or a game and becomes a mirror of loss. For the first time, he feels what life would be like without you. Not just missing your texts, not just wondering why you're quiet, but truly imagining someone else giving you the laughter, love, and closeness he once had, and that thought terrifies him. This is where his pride and ego matter less than his fear. Because now, your silence isn't just about space, it's about absence. It's about him facing the reality that he doesn't control you, he doesn't own your attention. And if he doesn't step up, he might lose you for good. In this phase, you'll see his behavior shift again. His texts might get longer, more emotional, sometimes even vulnerable. Instead of "Hey, you good?" he starts saying things like, "I miss talking to you," or "I don't like how things feel between us right now." Some men will go further. They'll start calling instead of texting. They'll suggest meeting in person. They speak with urgency because the fear of losing you is driving them to act. But not every man reacts with boldness. Some freeze. They want to reach out. But fear stops them. Fear of rejection. Fear of hearing you've moved on. Fear of discovering your silence is permanent. So instead of pursuing harder, they retreat into their own silence. And that silence speaks volumes too. Whether he steps up or freezes, this phase reveals the truth about your place in his heart. For the first time, his actions aren't about comfort, habit, or even ego, they're about raw emotion. Carl Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakes?" That's exactly what's happening here. Your silence has forced him to look inward, to awaken to feelings he might have buried or ignored. For some, this awakening pushes them to change, to value you, to hold on tighter. For others, it reveals they were never ready to give what you deserve. This is why silence matters so much. It doesn't just test him, it clarifies the truth for you. His reaction in this phase gives you answers words often can't. Now, the real question is, how do you handle his response? This is where many women stumble. Let's walk through these mistakes, because avoiding these traps is as powerful as the silence itself. Mistake 1. Breaking no contact too soon. Silence works because it disrupts the pattern. But if you rush to text him, after a few days of doubt, you reset everything. He stops feeling the loss. The impact fades, and you're back to square one, giving effort while he coasts. Mistake 2. Using social media as a weapon, posting cryptic quotes, overly polished selfies, or indirect jabs to make him jealous, might feel powerful in the moment, but it actually shows you're still tethered to his attention. Real power comes from not reacting, from showing through your energy that your life is full, meaningful, and complete with or without him. Mistake 3. Obsessing over his actions, refreshing his stories, tracking who he follows, analyzing every like. This doesn't give you clarity. It drains your energy and ties your self-worth to his behavior. Silence isn't just about not contacting him, it's about redirecting your focus back to yourself. Mistake 4. Playing games instead of being authentic. Some women try flirting with others or pretending to move on just to provoke him. While that might catch his eye for a moment, it rarely builds genuine attraction. It creates drama, not depth. And if he senses the game, it can cost you his respect. Mistake 5. Not preparing for his return. When he finally reaches out, many women assume it means he wants to fix things. But sometimes he's just seeking reassurance. If you rush to respond with excitement, you risk falling back into the loop that created the silence in the first place. You have to pause, assess his motives, and respond with calm clarity. So, how do you handle him when he reaches out? If his texts are light or casual, don't read too much into them. Keep your response short, kind, but firm. Show you're fine, that you don't crave his attention. If his texts are emotional or vulnerable, you have a chance to set boundaries. This doesn't mean punishing him, it means being clear about what you need to move forward. Something as simple as, "Thanks for reaching out. I need space to think. If we move forward, I want better communication between us." This tells him two things. You value yourself, and you won't settle for crumbs. And if he doesn't reach out at all, that's an answer too. If your absence doesn't push him to act, he's not willing to invest. And that clarity is a gift. It frees you to move on with dignity. This is the beauty of silence. No matter how he responds, you win. If he steps up, you gain clarity and a stronger position in the relationship. If he fades away, you save time from wasting it on someone unwilling to value you. Silence isn't manipulation, it's about truth. It strips away the noise and forces both of you to see reality clearly. Because in the end, your value doesn't come from his attention. It comes from how you hold yourself, how you choose patience over pursuit, strength over panic, and self-respect over desperation. And that's the greatest lesson silence teaches. You never lose when you prioritize yourself. So, remember this, silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. Silence isn't just a tool you use in relationships, it's a teacher. By now, you've seen how powerful silence can be in shifting dynamics, revealing truth, and restoring balance. But the story doesn't end there. What happens after the silence is just as critical as what happens during it, because once silence has spoken, you face a choice: rebuild with clarity or let go with dignity. Let's dive deeper into this final phase, because this is where many either transform their relationships or slip back into the patterns that caused the problem in the first place. When a man finally responds to your silence, whether with confusion, overthinking, sudden attention, or emotional realization, the ball is back in your court. And this is where you need more than patience, you need wisdom. Think of silence as a reset button. It strips away the noise, the constant texts, the chasing, the imbalance of energy. It resets the rhythm of the connection. But a reset only matters if you handle what comes next with strength. If you slide back into old ways, texting first, over-explaining, accepting half-hearted efforts, nothing truly changes. He returns to comfort, and you return to giving. So, how do you ensure silence leads to transformation, not repetition? First, redefine your standards. Silence shows you what you've been willing to accept and how that's made you feel. If his response proves he values you, moving forward requires new boundaries that protect your energy, your self-respect, and your place in the relationship. This doesn't mean building walls. It means drawing lines that say, "This is how I expect to be treated, and I won't settle for less." Second, look for consistency, not just intensity. During silence, he might come back strong, calling, texting, showing attention, but intensity without consistency fades. Real change isn't in the burst of Texts. It's in the steady effort he shows weeks and months later. Anyone can panic and chase when they feel they're losing something, but only someone who truly values you will keep showing up long after the fear subsides. Third, ask yourself, what do I really want? Silence often reveals not just his truth, but yours. Sometimes when he comes back, you realize you don't want the connection anymore. Maybe you wanted his attention more than his presence. Maybe you see his return doesn't erase the ways he neglected you. Or maybe his silence, his hesitation, his pride shows you've been holding on to someone who isn't truly invested. In those moments, silence sets you free. It shows you your value doesn't depend on him, that you can stand alone without crumbling. That's when you understand one of life's deepest truths. Sometimes losing someone is actually finding yourself. But if you choose to rebuild, the work starts on a new foundation. You can't rebuild by slipping back into old patterns. You rebuild with open communication, telling him what you need in the relationship to move forward. You rebuild by showing through your actions you won't tolerate being taken for granted again. You rebuild by staying calm and firm even when he tests your boundaries. Because here's the reality, men respect what they have to work for. If you make yourself the prize not through games, but through genuine self-respect, he'll treat you differently. Now, let's apply this lesson beyond relationships. Silence is powerful not just in romance, but in life. It teaches you discipline, patience, and clarity. When you stop chasing, whether it's a person, a situation, or an outcome, you create space for truth to reveal itself. You stop forcing, you start observing. Carl Jung believed deeply in the power of introspection. As we've reflected on his wisdom, let's echo the core of his message one last time. Life isn't about chasing what's outside, it's about awakening within. Silence creates that awakening. It forces you and the person you're silent with to look inward, to face what's been ignored, to see clearly what words often hide. So, what's the bigger picture here? Silence shows you who truly values you. It shows you who's willing to step up when you stop doing the work for them. It shows you who has the courage to face their own emotions and who hides behind pride. But most importantly, silence shows you something greater, that your value isn't tied to giving endlessly, that you don't have to chase to be chosen, that sometimes the strongest move you can make is to do nothing at all. Imagine two possible outcomes at the end of your silence. Outcome 1, he steps up. He admits he misses you. He shows effort. He rebuilds trust with consistency. Here, silence has given you clarity and leverage to move forward with balance. You're no longer the only one giving. He understands your value in a way he didn't before. Outcome 2, he fades away. He doesn't reach out. Or maybe he does, but with half-hearted effort. He lets the silence stretch even when it hurts. This might sting at first, but in truth, it's a gift. It reveals he's not willing to fight for you. And now you know for sure that letting go is the only path to peace. Either way, silence wins, because silence is clarity, and clarity is freedom. Now, let's talk about you, because this isn't just about him. The deeper lesson here is about your self-worth. When you practice silence, you're not punishing someone. You're proving to yourself you don't need to beg for attention, prove your worth, or exhaust yourself trying to be chosen. You're reminding yourself your value is non-negotiable. And here's the irony. When you embrace that truth, you often become more attractive than ever. Because confidence, self-respect, and patience are magnetic. They draw people in not through force, but through presence. Think about the most powerful people you've ever met. They don't chase. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't rush to prove their worth. They stand calmly in their truth, and the world adjusts to them. That's the power you hold when you master silence. So, let me close with this. Silence isn't manipulation, it's revelation. It reveals his heart. It reveals your strength. And it reveals the truth about whether a connection is meant to grow or end. Never fear silence. Embrace it, respect it. And remember this, when someone truly values you, silence won't push them away, it will pull them closer. Because in the end, silence doesn't weaken relationships, it exposes them. It shows which ones are strong enough to weather the storm and which were fragile from the start. That's your final gift. The freedom to choose with eyes wide open and the strength to never settle for less than you deserve. Share our channel to spread this journey of discovering the power of silence and self-worth.